Observation 1 status quo Milliken segregation legal Supreme Court did nothing to overrule stations President Roswell in 2002 Milliken into the movement to create metropolitan segregation plans by courts activists and didn't use responsible principle of school segregation should be considered illegal regardless of cost of the Supreme Court or any other federal courts up under the constitution highly unlikely these reporters in the near future is going to find factual segregation unconstitutional in the 14th Amendment and in Milliken or reinforce the idea of a distinction between urban and suburban schools ignoring the inherent divide education leads and optically turning its back on urban areas for suburbia from Louis 2004. What has happened in Milliken is the object of courts because there was not local control per se, but suburban local control court was unwilling to disrupt the jurisdictional boundaries of innocent suburban school urban districts for the sake of desegregating the import of Milliken decisions that fix the basic of educational inequality. The precedent of the urban suburban divide contemporary social and educational policy validates just as much prophecy in Milliken that you allow great metropolitan areas to be divided up each into two cities, one white, the other black. Of course, our people will ultimately grant Milliken to quote legitimize the social political forces separate cities from suburbs so they can conceptualize educational inequality as something more than the fortune, unactionable byproduct of vital national tradition of local control. And unfortunately, this structural segregation has led to one-race urban schools, which have become many correctional facilities, preparing our youth to accept their fate as disposable population destined for prison from Fuentes and 04. The educational track and students here some into achievement and opportunity while there's a funnel to prison track. Duncan understands the United States public education system in the context of prison industrial complex urban pedagogy effectively serve and economic function channel young people of color in the United States and the prison system. Forget the narrative of the education. Education is a great equalizer. Historically, public schools have always functioned at one level to prepare a workforce, and today that means preparing black and Latino students for subordinate roles in the economy. By extension, society, race, and economic comparatives of post-industrial society intersect to create an urban pedagogy that works on and through black and Latino students, make them ill-educated, superfluous population for whom prison is the logical option. Finally hit me over the head one day in St. Louis when I saw with these schools, so the same things that W.E.B. Du Bois was talking about, placing an easily identifiable group of students out of competition with white kids. What would our society look like if every child was educated to full potential? It would be utter chaos because we don't have jobs for every child. In lockdown high, where school budgets are invested in surveillance and security hardware, more school cops, not better educated teachers or enrichment programs, functioning computers, well-stocked library students are doing exactly what is expected of them. The system works. We wish this was just an accident. Unfortunately, this is a function of the global neoliberal project. These students are locked outside from white Americans here in the core of the city where minority students are prepared to be tunneled and channeled into prisons where labor will be sold to multinational corporations as slave labor. This is neoliberal politics as finest working to make a group of people invisible and disposable from Duncan and doesn't. Due to the economic social forces work today, new jobs are mainly found around third world countries underground in the Bergeron prison industrial complex. Except an excerpt from California Department of Corrections brochure, the operation cost-effective, dependable, trouble-free tower communications that successfully operated a message center, utilizing inmates on the grounds of California State Prison. Pure business leader planning expansion, consider relocation because of deficient labor pool. Starting a new enterprise, look into the benefits of using inmate labor. Many states are directing inordinate levels of resources to prison construction while allowing our public schools to languish. These policies reflect a certain logic. Both of these activities target the same population, Scottish superfluous population. There's no point in educating because there's nothing to do with them. You put them in prison because we're civilized people and you don't send death squads out to murder them. Today's prison industrial system is a variation of past educational legal measures aimed at subjugating people of color in the United States prison industrial complex, where social outcasts, political dissenters, so large the prisons, chain gangs of older to fulfill economic needs in several ways. It meets the ever-increasing profit demands of capitalism, creates a variety of jobs, both ego jobs on the inside, respectable ones on the outside, that absorb white workers displaced by prevailing high technology, service-oriented economy. Disposable populations are segregated from white affluent suburbs. This segregation is not innocuous to the state sponsored within. This framework state segregates African Americans into ghettos, effectively removing them from public space. This is biopolitics of disposability, where poor minorities are destroyed in order to preserve the militaristic neoliberal state from Giroux in 2006. Indian Trinity State no longer provided a safety net for the poor, sick, elderly, and homeless. It had been transformed into a punishing institution dead on dismantling welfare state and treating the homeless, unemployed, illiterate, and disabled as dispensable populations to be managed, criminalized, and made to disappear in prisons, ghettos, and black hole of despair. The role of the state seems to be about engendering financial rewards and privileges of only some members of society, while the welfare of those marginalized by race and class is now viewed with criminal contempt. The central amendment of the new hyper-neoliberalism is now organized around the best way to remove or make invisible those individuals and groups who are either seen as a drain or stand in the way of market freedoms within a neoconservative dream of the American empire. The new biopolitics of disposability of the poor, especially people of color, not only have to fend for themselves and face life strategies, but are also supposed to do so without being seen by the dominant society. They've been rendered invisible, disposable, and heir to the army of socially homeless that allegedly no longer exists in colored white America. Images of poor blacks are made indistinguishable from images of crime and violence, criminalizing black behavior to solve social problems, do more than legitimate biopolitics of violence, increasingly by the authority and expanding national security state under George W. Bush. This becomes particularly dangerous in democracy when parliamentary or military organizations gain their legitimacy increasingly from fear, build fear and terror, prompted largely by the presence of those racialized as class-specific groups and considered both dangerous and disposable. The impact is geographic, where put that in biopolitical goal intersect and devastate African America, leading to their eradication genocide from Trenton in 2002. Concentrating group members in specific geographical localities. The last step before annihilation, segregation is not random. It's been created by a series of individual institutional acts by white Americans at the individual level. There have been violent restrictive governments, block busting at the institutional level. There have been systematic discrimination by the federal government, as well as segregative decisions by elite institutions in urban areas to raise black neighborhoods and replace them with identity units. Segregation is concentrated poverty of African Americans in 1989. Nearly 25% of all African American men between the ages of 20 and 29 were lost more than the criminal justice system by 95. That number increased from almost 1 in 3. The percentage of black women in prison increased between 85 and 95. About 204%, half of those in jail today are black. Because so many states have the right for probationers, parolees, and former felons. In 1998, 30% of all black men in the United States could not vote. Is that it's not random that so many African Americans are lost criminal justice system, regarding black Americans ostracizing them from community life and segregating them from the rest of society. All circle around and reinforce each other. They create poverty at the same time. That's the plan. The United States Supreme Court should, after granting a writ of certiorari to the next relevant test states, overrule Milky v. Bradley, 418 U.S. 717 1974 on the grounds of de jure de facto segregation constitutes an abrogation of the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution. We reserve the right to clarify intent. Observation to its solvency. First, there's no constitutional difference between de facto and de jure segregation. Overrule Milky forces states to be aware of de facto segregation. Douglas and 74. There is no constitutional difference between de facto and de jure segregation. Restrictive covenants maintained by state action or inaction build black ghettos and state action when public funds are dispensed by housing agencies to build racial ghettos. The state creates and nurtures segregated school system just as surely as those states involved in Brown and integration is the only way to achieve equality from Selmy in 2006. If we look beyond poverty concentrated among minority groups, we'll find schools too often fail. The children most need equality education, right? That this no longer societal concerns we found convergence of minority communities announcing integration is easy to criticize integration as requiring assimilation of white values. It would be far better to remember the goals of the integration of achieving true equality of opportunity for those who have so long been denied the opportunity or still worth pursuing. Nowhere is that more apparent than in our cities, which we must not become stratified layers, white individuals both enough to send their children to private schools, racial and ethnic minorities society public schools will help ensure perpetuation of inequality. The plan is a critical site for ethical resistance. Racism must take the form of resistance to particular policies and norms. Our criticism is grounded in the belief that Milky v. Bradley is racist, and as such, a specific side of struggle over the legal, structural, and institutional codification of racism. Goldberg in 93. Ethical resistance to racism must necessarily assume political, legal, economic, cultural reforms. Any such resistance to racism must be underwritten by personal ethical commitment, given the basic practical and determinative moral reasons. Reign of resistance to racism cannot merely be moral or sustained, sustained merely by moral appeal narrowly construed. Generalized commitment to the specificities of particular anti-racist practices can be reflected theoretically only in the flexibility of philosophical pragmatism. Commitment against racism must seek to resist specific forms of practices of exclusion, exploitation, oppression, transform political, racist, social formation in the name of general principles of socio-political transformation. These principles will acquire specificity within the political culture in terms of struggles and major standard social relations and least remotely achievable ideals for establishment. Those actively committed to resisting racism cannot find their resistance or transform projects in terms of abstract transcendental ideals as atemporal, universal fixed social foundations, or can transform the project seeks grounding in terms of universal adherence to the sameness of trans-historical subject, emancipatory ideals, and the means to their institution must be considered provisional, revisable, situated, and transformative, transgressive civilities and historical contexts where social subjects generally find themselves struggling individually and collectively, and court decisions have symbolic importance. From Ford in 2004, every law school student knows the Brown v. Board of Education is a Supreme Court case that illegally enforced racial segregation in the United States. Brown only into Jim Crow segregation, and more than any other case, also implemented the court's position to defend minority rights and as the avant-garde and social justice struggles generally. Racial reconstruction from what remember was started and then saw effectively reversed in this nation's not so distant Brown matters to federal civil rights legislation without the coup de grace Jim Crow. More or less directly, remember Brown was the least supported symbolically as most practically. Brown made racial discrimination legitimate subject for fair different set of expectation norms of race relations in the United States. Brown made racial discrimination racism unacceptable. To your opinion.
Okay, so how do these inner cities desegregate, or how are their inter district school remedies desegregate?
I think that there are a lot of different mechanisms for that to happen. Certainly, like redrawing district boundary lines is one of them. Probably the one that we'll defend. Here, do you have anything else to say?
Probably will defend? Yeah, we'll defend it. It's just a matter of redrawing district lines. Our evidence in the 1AC doesn't speak to this particular mechanism, but it's about.
Okay, so let's say some schools don't want to redraw the district lines. What would be their remedy post plan?
I guess I don't understand your question.
Well,
Post plan, it's unconstitutional not to redraw those lines.
That's not true. That's not true.
You overturn
Your
Milliken.
just says that you just overturn Milliken. You don't say what the remedy is.
What is the
Right,
enforcement
not-
mechanism for someone who wouldn't?
Not redrawing a line would be a violation
That
of
is
the
not in your
Constitution.
plan text. What are the potential remedies
Okay.
in your plan text?
We already told you at the beginning, cross-ex, that we'll defend redrawing district lines as the remedy.
Will you defend busing?
No.
No?
Not normal means for
Read
desegregation.
evidence that
We don't read
redrawing
evidence
district
that
lines-
We'll read it if you read it, this ad and busing.
Okay, that's fine. Why are schools the key magnet or key locus point for resistance?
Well, our evidence indicates that it's the education system that is funneling minority students into prisons now.
Okay, so it's not, like poverty, other factors.
We think
Why
that
is it
all of those are
education?
caused by education.
Okay, so you're telling me that education leads to poverty?
Uh-huh.
Okay, if we can win arguments about why education is a result of poverty, why isn't that, or lack of education rather? Is it-
Lack of education is the result.
Okay,
of
so
poverty.
how does redrawing
lack of-
lines and putting them into schools change the fact that they might,
We think that it provides for better education. Our
Okay.
evidence is pretty
Yes.
specific about why schools that are almost exclusively minority are
Right, but
disadvantaged in
it's a
several
causal
ways.
argument, right? Like whether or not the minority schools are the reason they have poor education, or they're impoverished and have to live in areas where they get poor education.
Clearly, our defense is going to be that they get bad education, and that's what causes poverty.
Why do they get bad education?
Yeah.
Huh?
Why do they get bad education?
They get bad education because they're funneled into inner cities where
Black
taxes
schools-
aren't as high, and things of
Okay,
that
so
nature.
what if schools?
Taxes aren't as good?
Well, they don't garner as much income from taxes,
Our
which is the
evidence is
basis for
actually
all schools.
all-
Now, is your evidence
specific to
specific to public schools then, or
Yes.
all schools?
It's specific to
Public.
public schools, and it criticizes the idea that if you're a minority or of a minority category, I guess, is what the construction of racism uses it as, that's justifiable for putting you in a bad school.
Well, take a look. How do you